When it comes to making investments against the future, there are no sure bets. While one commodity has all the markings of becoming successful, another commodity can come from nowhere and perform beyond expectations. That, simply put, is the case with the Rolex watches, which have seemingly come out on top as a better investment than traditional investments like gold and stocks. If you could go back to 2011 and you were offered a choice between a 50-gram gold bar and a Rolex, which would you pick? The choice seems very obvious, right? It's not. While it seems to make all the sense in the world to pick the gold bar, time has revealed that the Rolex is a better investment of the two options. Thanks to the pandemic, we have all learned that life can take an unexpected turn at unexpected times. You could wake up tomorrow and the news would be filled with a new virus, and you could wake up the next day to find that Rolex watches have more value than bars of gold. Many people have started looking for several areas to invest their money into. While cryptocurrencies and NFTs are the rave right now, you can also look in an unlikely place that will make a tidy sum. This arena does not promise quick returns that cryptocurrencies offer, but it's a lot safer. It's even a lot safer than gold, which seems to be the gold standard, pun intended. Yup, believe it or not, it turns out that it is much safer to put your money in Rolexes than it is to invest in gold, real estate, and even stocks. This shocking new information came to light after a study was conducted by an online retailer, Bob Watches. The study shows that Rolexes have regularly outperformed the traditional investment options over the past 10 years. Bob's Watches is a California-based e-commerce retailer of pre-owned Rolexes and other luxury watches. The enterprise has collected data over the past decade and analyzed how Rolex values have performed in the secondary market over the period. They then evaluated the data with percentage increases for gold and real estate, based on the inflation-adjusted values for gold. When all the data are compared side by side, it was quite a surprise to realize that Rolex watches significantly outperformed both. Since the beginning of time, one of the never-ending battles is the merits, the lack thereof, of investing in luxury watches. There have been many points coming from both parties with neither willing to cave. There have also been several papers, articles and essays with several analysts weighing up either side of the fence. Regardless of all these arguments, some people still choose to spend their money on watches, while others disregard the investment avenue. However, watches have come a long way from what they once were, and one of the watches that make a good case for those who argue that watches make great investment sense is the Rolex Explorer. The Rolex Explorer reference 1016 is considered a vintage watch in his age, but it was originally designed for a different crowd, and that is the adventurous people. The watch was inspired by the first successful summit climb of Mount Everest in 1953. While looking at the history of such antique watches, a 50-year-old quote states that the Explorer sells for $180. Those with authentic Rolex bracelets sell for $195 at fine jewelry shops. In this day and age, the watch, which was sold for less than $200, now costs over $1,500, at least. In a matter of 50 years, a single Rolex watch has made such huge returns. According to the study conducted, we now know for a fact that the average price of a used Rolex watch rose from just shy of $5,000 to over $13,000 between 2011 and the end of last year. Current figures show that this is not the end of the watch's climb, but the beginning. The increase in value is only just heating up since the start of the pandemic, as it did 5 years prior. During the company's analysis of the performance of all Rolex watches, two watches stood out from the rest as the best of the best. The two watches were the stainless steel Submariner, Ref 16610, and the Daytona. The Submariner easily took the top spot of the highest-selling Rolex over time, while the Daytona appreciated the most with an average pre-owned price of over $30,000. The Rolex Submariner was first introduced in 1953, and to date, it remains a crowd pleaser. The timepiece comes with a screw-down case back and trip-lock winding crown, which makes the watch waterproof for up to 1,000 feet. This watch is evidence of the second great breakthrough in the technical mastery of waterproofness. It comes at the heels of the Oyster, the world's first waterproof wristwatch in 1926. When it comes to the world of watchmaking, the Submariner represents a historic turning point in setting the standard for divers' watches. The watch provides high-precision movement with optimal protection from water, dust, pressure and shocks. The watch flawlessly monitors the diving time and decompression stops. It also has a unidirectional rotatable bezel with knurled edges that offer excellent grip when setting the dive time. It rotates notch by notch, accompanied by distinctive clicks. Due to the chromolite luminescent capsule on the zero markers, the bezel can also be used in dark underwater environments. More than just a diver's watch, the timepiece won a piece of everyone's heart when it featured in the 007 movie franchise. Since then, the watch grew to become a bona fide fashion statement. According to Betteridge, in 1962, on the wrist of James Bond, the watch started a dual incarnation as a fashion icon that to this day imparts a powerful image of male urbanity and refinement. The Daytona Surge is the watch collector's equivalent of the Holy Grail. That just depicts how rare this watch is. This can be quite confounding because of their relative ubiquity on Instagram and continuous presence on major auction sites. They can be considered relatively inexpensive by the standard of luxury watches, but regardless, the watch is difficult to find. It's much easier to plunk $14,000 to purchase a Submariner than it is to find a Daytona watch. The watch was first introduced in 1960, and it comes with several special features. Apart from the normal time-telling feature, the watch also performs a separate time measuring function like a stopwatch with separate second hands. The stopwatch function can be started and stopped and reset to 0 through the push of buttons on the side of the case. The Rolex watches were named Daytona in reference to Daytona Beach, Florida, which is home to some of the biggest names in auto racing. The watches were quite popular with the racing community due to their usefulness in calculating the average speed of a lap. This then begs the question, why are Rolex Daytona watches so elusive and difficult to find? You could create several scenarios in your head, but the simple truth is that Daytona watches go to those who are deserving of it. The Daytona watches do not just go to anyone, but to those who have the money and the healthy appreciation of watches, who would truly appreciate it. In so many words, you need to put blood, sweat, and tears, meaning equity, into forming a relationship with the brand. You need to be a loyal customer before you stand a chance of getting the watch. It shouldn't come as much of a surprise that the Rolex watches are in such high demand. They are, after all, the world's best known watch brand. It is quite surprising, however, how well the watches have done for themselves when compared to other investments in the past decade. The analysis was conducted from the data obtained by macrotrends.net and the Federal Reserve Economic Data (FRED) database. While the stocks and the bonds have performed just as well as the watches, the Dow Jones Industrial Average state that the wristwatches have appreciated at a much higher percentage. Based on the current projections, it won't be so surprising if the timepieces continue to prove to be a smart investment in years to come. The demand for the brand's watches has increased drastically since the start of the pandemic. This rise in demand occurred in no small part due to the supply chain issues. Rolex has already raised the price of some of its models, and this price increase will soon reflect in secondary markets. Regardless, it's quite clear that the Rolex mania will not be relenting anytime soon. Although the progress of the Rolex watches is a clear indication that not everything can be predicted and projected, it goes without saying that the upward climb of the Rolex watches is not going to go away anytime soon. Several factors continue to promote the safe investment anyone can make with a Rolex watch, and that means that rather than going for gold or stocks, you can simply put your money in Rolex watches. What are you more in favor of? Building a stock portfolio or building a collection of Rolex watches? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, smash that like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel by pressing that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Goodbye, Lux Cats. Until next time.